Slower economic growth, rapid change in technology, rising income inequality. Together, they all make for tough times for people who are spending longer at the lower end of the pay scale and for governments struggling to find solutions for the troubles their citizens face. A new report from the Mowat Centre may have some solutions. It's called Race to the Top, Developing an Inclusive Growth Agenda for Canada. And its authors, economist Armin Yalnizyan and Sunil Johal, Policy Director at the Mowat Centre, join us now to explain. Nice to have you two back in those chairs. Good to see you both again.
Thank you.
Let's just start with obviously some basic understanding of why you're calling it what you're calling it. Inclusive growth is what?
I mean, it's a very broad-ranging term. For the purposes of this paper, we're really exploring the notion that economic growth, as we've traditionally referred to it and measured it, has been based on gross domestic product. So the kind of top-line number, Canada's economy grew at 2% last year, or 2.5%. That doesn't actually, though, measure what broadly prosperous growth might look like for many people within society. Mm-hmm. So if you're somebody in a middle income position or lower, that top line growth may not actually translate into wage growth for you. It may not translate into a better life for you. So we're starting to slowly realize that across advanced economies, not just in Canada, the growth models we've been pursuing for the past 40 years or so haven't led to inclusive growth. They've in fact led to record high levels of income inequality, persistent wage stagnation, and significant growth in forms of precarious work. So our report really starts unpacking what's behind those issues.
Well, we've seemed content to talk about just the top line number for many, many decades. Why now are we getting around to talking about inclusive growth?
Great question, and I think it's partly because the global financial crisis of 2008 really brought a lot of these issues to the fore, and suddenly you got all these major international institutions, the OECD, the IMF, the World Bank, starting to talk about why is it that our formulas that we have been following, our recipe for growth, has been leaving so many people behind. And even before Trump was elected and Brexit happened, these analyses of inclusive growth, or what's at stake if you don't pursue inclusive growth, was basically saying it could lead to a rise in populism. And presto, bango, it was like, yeah, this analysis seems validated. And what's really interesting is the focus is still on growth because, as Sunil said, growth is slowing globally. So governments need to boost growth, but they're saying the way we've done it in the last 40 years, we can't keep doing.
Why has it not been inclusive growth over the past 40 years?
I mean, the shorthand is trickle down. So the shorthand has been less government, more market, give the market the capacity to do what it does, make wealth, and it'll trickle down to everyone. And we've seen that that set of rules that deregulates and privatizes everything and really kind of almost idolizes market solutions for everything has led to a winner-take-all mentality. And what these reports are saying is the more everybody wins, the more we all win together.
I think we got a chart for this. Sheldon, you want to bring up number 3 here? This is right out of your report. The employment rate, this is for people aged 25 to 44, and we're looking back over the last more than 4 decades. And Armin, you want to take us through this chart? I mean, obviously, for men, it has not been a great situation. The participation rate among women is a little better, but what jumps out at you there?
Well, there's 2 stories going on here. For the men, a large part of why the employment rate is falling is because lots of men in this age category are doing more education than they ever did before. So this is not all a bad news story. And also, men are taking breaks from employment. They're pivoting to other things. They're doing, sometimes they're caregiving. The big story here, though, is women, age 25 to 44, the prime childbearing ages for women, and no other cohort by age or by gender saw this kind of a spurt in employment rate. That's from about half of all women in the childbearing age group to over 3/4 of them now are employed. So the big storyline here is we don't have that card to play going forward. That was one of the 2 big reasons why income inequality in Canada did not follow the storyline in the United States. It's not as extreme here.
I got a chart for you. This, with no disrespect to the last chart, I thought this chart was absolutely mind-blowing. 1964, the biggest company in America was AT&T. It was worth $250 billion, and it had more than 750,000 people working there. Fast forward to last year, Apple is the #1 company, worth 3 times what AT&T was worth, with 10% of the employees. Doesn't that tell you everything you need to know about why we're in the pickle we're in?
It really does. I mean, that's the story we haven't mentioned yet, is the economy is changing and we're entering this digital era, this digital economy in which massive amounts of value can be created by far fewer people than we historically would have ever been used to creating that value. So the case of Apple versus AT&T is just a very stark symbol of that. Whereas those people working for AT&T, those for the most part would have been good, high-paying, quality jobs that generates tax revenue for the jurisdiction where those folks are living. Now we look at Apple, the Googles of the world, far fewer people. They're very well paid, but a lot of them aren't living in Canada, but they're delivering services to us here in Ontario and Canada. How do we get tax revenue from large globe-straddling corporations that don't reside here, and even if they did, have far, far fewer people?
Yeah. What's the answer to that?
It's a really good question. I mean, the OECD and the G20 have been looking at this issue of profit shifting amongst multinational corporations. They estimate that governments around the world are losing between 4 and 10% of their corporate tax revenue as a result of the activities of not just tech firms, but all large global multinational firms. So in Ontario alone, that would mean up to $1.5 billion today being lost in terms of tax revenue as a result of essentially tax shifting to low tax jurisdictions. So the question becomes, how do we join forces with other countries and other governments to make sure that these large firms are being taxed appropriately and we can generate revenue for social programs for workers who might be displaced by new technologies,
and I guess what it also means is that companies that are paying that corporate tax right now are paying a disproportionately high share, or higher than maybe they ought to, because these other ones are getting off without paying as much.
Absolutely. I mean, there was a report, I think last year, that traditional bookstores in England are paying something on the order of about 10 times more in terms of taxes than Amazon is paying. And I mean, these are small, much smaller, kind of local traditional bricks and mortar firms. So our tax rules and tax systems really need to be modernized to take account of the fact that we don't live in a world based on residency. We live in an increasingly borderless world.
There are going to be people, Armin, who think it is the private sector's job to figure this all out. My hunch is you think government has a role to make sure that growth is more inclusive. Am I right?
Well, it's interesting that you should raise that question in that way, because I wanted to piggyback on what Sunil was talking about. Sunil, this is a co-authored report. Sunil really put the focus on the redistribution part. I've been putting the focus on the pre-distribution part, which is how does the market deliver better things? You need less redistribution, less taxes, less programs if the market's delivering the goods, right? Good jobs, decent jobs, well-paid, good benefits, less churn, less precarity. So how do you do that? There's what we've done, I think, is something quite unique for Canada, is develop a playbook that actually has a suite of options for individuals, communities, businesses, and governments to both work on the market side of things, how the market delivers good results, as well as how you redistribute when the market doesn't deliver great results. And that the heart of the story is that slide you had up, which showed greater corporate concentration with fewer jobs. One of the trends that is happening all over the world, and is why the IMF, the World Bank, the OECD is talking about inclusive growth, is all over the world. When you look over the course of the past generation, labor's share, the workers' share of the economy is shrinking over time, which means capital's share, corporations' share, is getting to be more dominant. And so the question then arises, how do you work to actually improve these outcomes? And a big part of the answer is rebalancing bargaining power in the jobs that exist. And bargaining power isn't about strengthening labor at the expense of corporations. It means you have to talk to one another. You have to come to an understanding of what's fair in your workplace. So there's a few small things to do. First of all, sectoral bargaining in sectors like retail or fast food, any sector that's got a lot of turnover, really low wages, where there's so many small places that you need to bargain together to get any kind of yes as to what's the minimum for our sector. What does something reasonable look like for our sector? pay transparency, which makes it easy, like it's the last taboo, right? We never talk about how much we make. But how do you negotiate if you don't know how much other people are making? So extending that kind of sunshine list principle for public sector employees and talking about how much we make to get closer to pay equity and fair pay.
Do you agree with that we ought to be publishing the salaries of private sector employees as well?
Oh, not necessarily publishing, but like within the workplace you can be transparent, so you can talk about
You
this.
can take it as far as publishing if you anonymize some of the information. I mean, in some cases, I think it's Norway, they actually do publish everybody's tax information. What they found was everybody's looking at how much their neighbor's making, but then they made a tweak to the system that I can see if you looked at my information, those numbers actually went far down. So it's like, okay, if I really need to know how much my neighbor's making, I'll look, but I know they're going to know about that.
It's interesting, I mean, not everything comes back to pro sports with me, but a lot of it does. And athletes started to make a fortune once, players' associations published the salaries of free agent signings. And then when you knew how much the third baseman from the other team was making, you could have some sense about what you ought to be asking for yourself. Are you suggesting that's the way we ought to organize things in the rest of the economy?
I think generally speaking, transparency is a good thing. It's going to reduce those information asymmetries where the firm, the employer has a new employee walking in the door. They have all the cards in that situation, and they can really, especially if you're desperate for the job, say, well, I'm going to start you off at $18 an hour, even though everybody else in that same position is making $22. Mm-hmm. Or if you walk into that interview or that situation as the employee, prospective employee, knowing everybody else is making 22, I mean, most people are saying, I expect $22 an hour. So, I mean, it's a pretty simple tweak. I don't see a lot of downside to it, especially if you anonymize the data and you're kind of maintaining people's
growth more inclusive, you think, at the end of the day.
I mean, it's just one of many things that we talk about in the report.
I mean, it's being published through things like Glassdoor right now, where people are, posting, this is how much I make, this is what my experience has been, so that we are starting to talk about it.
What is that? I don't know that.
Glassdoor is a website where you can learn about how were you hired, what was the interview process like, what's the job like, and that includes how much do you make. So the internet is making things more transparent, and if we did that more systemically, you wouldn't have situations like male broadcasters making 10% more than female broadcasters, right? We are starting to talk about even gender differences for doing exactly the same jobs in a brand new way. So it's an old conversation, but taking place in a new way.
It was interesting, though, the female reporters were making more than male reporters,
True.
but the anchors, male anchors made more than female anchors.
So a huge part of that was tenure. How long had you been doing it? So, as we talk about it, we start seeing, what does fair pay look like? Is it about gender? Is it about experience? And just eliminating that goes a really long way to making inclusive growth happen.
Well, you've got the floor. Minimum wage. We've had huge changes in the province in the last year on minimum wage. The Premier changed the policy a couple of years ago, and then she changed it again more recently. It's going to go up to $15 an hour starting January 2019. Obviously, if the Liberals win the election. If they don't, it's a different story. What do you want to see happen to the minimum wage that would sort of take it out of politics and make it predictable and everybody would be sort of content with a new system?
Yeah. Excellent question, because we've never actually had the conversation well about why $15, why not $30, why not $100? Right. And the answer is, all around the world where we try and target a decent minimum wage, it's in relationship to the average wage, not the median wage, not the halfway point, but the average wage, because we all together create an economy. So it has to include the people at the top. It has to include the bosses. And normally that's a 60% ratio that in European countries they're aiming for. That's what they aim for in sectoral bargaining in individual sectors of the industry.
So say it again, it's 60% of the average wage?
60%
should be the minimum.
That would be the minimum. So what you're trying to do is compress wages, so you don't get these groups going completely off the deep end. And that's what has happened for the lowest paid workers. And by the way, this is how you get inclusive growth. When you make sure that the floor doesn't fall too far behind, you make sure that growth translates to broad-based prosperity, and then you don't need governments to step in quite as much.
I always thought they picked 15 because it was a good slogan, the fight for 15. It was alliterative. Fight for 15. I didn't think it was based in economics. I thought it was based in political marketing.
I don't know how much it was based on economics. I'm just telling you that it turns out that 15 is roughly 60% of the average wage.
Okay, good. So Neil, let's talk about another one of these ideas for making the economy more inclusive and making growth more inclusive. Governments obviously see part of their responsibility as redistributing wealth in our society. How do you want to either modify or change the way it does it right now?
So there are a lot of ways we can look at this. I mean, one broad way is redistribution through existing programs and policies. So for example, if we want to make access to childcare easier for people, one option is public provision of childcare for people. So that could boost women's employment rates further. It could make it easier for fathers to take time off, so on and so forth. We can also look at pharmacare. So there are a whole range of programs where we could think about, do we want to universalize the provision of these services or not? There are also options on the tax side. So, I mean, we haven't had a full review of our tax system in Canada for over 50 years. In that time, the world has changed dramatically. I mean, we mentioned earlier the changes for companies like Apple in terms of they're digital, they're borderless. It's really hard for us in Canada to tax those types of companies, even though they're deriving massive benefit from their operations here in Canada. We could look at corporate withholding tax, for example. Companies in Canada are sitting on a lot of cash right now. How do we make sure they're putting that to productive uses? We know they're not necessarily investing that back into workers in terms of skills training. They're not investing in machinery or ICT improvements.
No,
so
it's sitting there. It's dead money.
It's dead cash. Yeah. That's what Mark Carney called it. So are there methods we could use through the tax system to either incentivize or compel them to put that money back to productive uses?
There's another idea you've gotten here, international tax treaties. That sounds, on the face of it, especially in this world today, impossible to organize.
That's going to be a tough nut to crack, but the OECD and the G20 are doing really good work around what we call, or what they call, the base erosion and profit shifting initiative. So that is that notion that companies are moving to low-tax jurisdictions like Ireland, shielding their profits, and then that's causing a problem for all the other countries, which are saying, well, where's our share of the tax revenue? And in fact, Ireland actually said against an EU ruling, we don't want the money. They were actually fighting a ruling that said Ireland should get an extra, I think it was $30 billion in tax revenue, because they wanted to maintain their position as the low-tax jurisdiction. So what kind of upside-down world are we living in where countries are turning down tax revenue just so they can maintain their place of preference as the low-tax option?
Armin, some of what you were telling us earlier, it sounds to me as if that's the role. I mean, we talked about role of business, role of governments. It sounded to me like what you were talking about ought to be in the purview of unions. Unions, though, have, I don't know if they've never been less powerful in our history than they are right now, but they're facing some very, very tough challenges right now. What role do you see for them in making economic growth more inclusive?
I think it's unclear how they're going to play a role, but I can tell you, guaranteed, because we're seeing it unfold in real time on digital platforms. So in the gig economy, in the world of online labor, people are realizing if we don't organize ourselves, we're going to continue to get the short end of the stick. So we're seeing, without labor unions existing, legacy labor unions leading the call, people waking up and realizing the only way we're going to win at this game is if we actually coordinate our activities so we don't keep competing with one another.
Can you imagine a union of coders, for example?
Well, it's emerging. There's a freelancers organization, freelancers union. There's all sorts of websites where people are telling each other, this is how you negotiate. This is how you turn down these type of jobs. These are the good jobs to go for. People are working together in a way that looks, and they're actually getting together to try and figure out how they pool. It's kind of like 100 years ago, Steve. It looks like mutual aid circles, right? We know we can't do this on our own. How do we put our best thinking together to cover the benefits that we need for when we can't work? Because these people are quintessentially, they're not covered by employment standards either. So employment standards that actually address the needs of these, what are called in Europe, gray workers. They're neither employees nor independent contractors. So how do we make sure that anybody doing paid work is covered by employment standards? It's a tough nut to crack, but that will partly help. But can I just say that for Canada, this is something that most people don't know. Canada is one of the biggest users of low-waged workers in the world. We're second only to the United States. So when we were talking about raising the minimum wage, when we talk about better employment standards, when we talk about organizing, as you start reducing your reliance on low wage, you improve your productivity, you improve your efficiency, you start actually cranking up your productive potential. This is good for business, to stop being reliant on low wages, and that's what we mean by inclusive growth.
So last word to you. What country in the world, it's clearly not us, is doing the best at inclusive growth?
I'd give you four. It's the Nordic countries. I mean, it's the Swedens, it's the Denmarks of the world. They've had a long history of providing really high quality public services. They've done an incredible job at generating women's labor force participation over the last 30 to 40 years. They have relatively much lower levels of income inequality than we do in countries like Canada or the United States. So they are a great model. And the one thing we need to look at when we look at their model is their tax rates are much higher than ours. So if we want to get into a conversation about how do we become more like the Nordic countries when it comes to inclusivity, we're going to also have to have a very uncomfortable conversation about what kind of tax rates do we want in Canada, and if we want really high quality, good public services, are we willing to pay for them? And that's a conversation we really, quite honestly, haven't been having in Canada for a number of years.
I'd have to say that the title that we chose was quite deliberate, A Race to the Top, because what we've been dealing with over the last 30 years is a race to the bottom. How do you attract investment by lowering your tax rates? How do you attract investment by having the cheapest workers? And now we're seeing a moment where both digital technologies and population aging is meaning we have to also be a magnet for people and talent. And that changes what the race is about. The race now becomes about quality of life, just like Sunil was saying. And the good news is, Steve, that we are the 10th largest economy in the world, which means we can have whatever kind of world we want, and we have to start talking about how not only we are going to engage in this race to the top to be the people and money magnet for these big corporations sloshing around, but also how we can be actually the exemplar, how we can be, in the early 21st century, the Sweden the world wants to be.
And speaking of we got to talk about it, I'm glad you two came in to talk about it with us tonight here on TVO. And I presume the study, The Race to the Top, is available on the Mowat Center website?
It's on our website. Please take a look, and we'd welcome anybody's thoughts on it.
Excellent. Armin Yalnizyan, Sunil Johal. Good of you to come into TVO tonight. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Steve.
The Agenda with Steve Bacon is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.